What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. Yes. The roar just completes it, right? Yeah. What is up? What is up to all the difference makers out there? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. You know what? Like during 2020, I made a couple of declarations. One of them was that there's going to be companies and people that are going to rise to the top, and there's going to be people that are at the top or companies that exist now that don't exist and just kind of fade away. And then I was on this level of being a business coach, and I was watching all these people flooding and kind of leaving corporate America, leaving their jobs and forming their businesses. And it was really funny because I was on this level and I was watching it, and it was super beautiful as I got to work with people as they were forming their businesses, taking their purpose, their passion, their expertise. You know, it's a big lesson people got out of 2020 is like, there's no time to waste doing the things that maybe they don't necessarily love to do when they can go out and find the things. They can go out and make their own business, right, and create their life. And so watching that happen, and then watching as all of a sudden there's this great problem of hiring and finding employees, and I watched all these owners of companies blame like unemployment, like people were just sitting at home making unemployment. No, man, people are going out and finding ways to make money that wasn't working for you. And so I got a couple of guys that through 2020, this happened. And something else really cool that happened through 2020 was I started this podcast, Coffee and Grit, and in the beginning it was like one step up from being in grandma's basement, like in the collaborative workspace, sitting at the coffee table. I've got someone making coffee over in the corner while I'm interviewing people. And I was approached, I think it was last year at a golf event for SiriusNet, and Michael and Austin came up to me and said that they had listened to Coffee and Grit. And then when I was talking to Michael a few weeks back, he was saying when they started the business, this was one of the podcasts they were listening to. And so super cool, because honestly, back then, I don't even know if I had a concept that people were listening outside of me just sitting at this table with people. And, it was getting these videos out, but it's cool to know that there were people listening out there, and to come full circle where we're at now to have Michael and Austin on the show. Welcome, Mitten Junk Removal, owners of Mitten Junk Removal, Michael Mayernik and Austin Williams. Welcome to the podcast studio.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
My pleasure. So obviously that little bit of an intro, like tell me your guys' story and how you guys met, that origin and what started you to be where you're at now.
Yeah, I'll let Austin start with that.
Yeah, so basically our story mirrors exactly kind of what you just said. First, I married Michael's cousin a while ago, so we're cousins through marriage. So I've known Michael for at least 15 years now. And it was early into the pandemic. We were having bonfires at my place every Friday night, family bonfires. And by the end of the week, we were both just chewed up and spit out from our jobs, working 60, 70 hours a week, unhappy, and just kind of joking around, throwing ideas out there. And you're like, what? We could really do something. We have complementary skills. I was in the trades and service for 11 plus years, and him in retail. So our skill set really fit well together, and just some hard weeks and some YouTube videos and different ideas bouncing around. And we came into junk removal, which was great because we thought we could start it kind of part-time and ease into it. Not a lot of, barriers to entry, and something we could really, elevate and differentiate ourselves from the, other things that are out there right now. So one thing, just one foot in front of the other, everything fell into place, and here we are, almost 2.5 years later, and
that's amazing.
Growing
in hiring, right? And you're at a point where it's hiring and building the business even more.
Yeah, and I think just like you were saying before, you get to that point, and it's not like a point, I don't think, where it's like, oh my gosh, like I hate what I'm doing per se. It's like, well, what can I do to take control of my life? I mean, I'm in my 40s now, and I don't know. Austin's got 7 years or so to catch up, so that's a good thing. But you say, how do I want to be spending my time? And you start looking at family, and you start reevaluating things, and you can keep doing the same thing you're doing and you know, burning the candle at both ends, and maybe you get later in life when you wish that there's some things that you did that you didn't have a chance to, or you can take control of it. And I think that's a lot of what led us to this. Was we wanted to control our time. We wanted to control our lives. We wanted to be able to say when we were or weren't going to work, and maybe be able to spend some more time with not only our families, but doing hobbies that we love. So, you know, this was a great way to do that. And I mean, the other cool thing about being a local business, I think, and small and ingrained in the community like we are, is we're able to help make a difference with the community and connect with other businesses too. So it's been a really cool adventure so far. You know, we're going through some growing pains right now, but that's the name of the game. And, you know, we've been loving it.
It's so awesome. You mentioned being a part of the community. That's one of my favorite parts too. And a big driver is being able to like do the networking events, meet all kinds of other business owners. I mean, that's how we really met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and honestly, like for us, I mean, we get our business from a lot of different places right now. But I would, if I had to just summarize like where we're getting most of it, is from the referral groups and from the networking events and from, you know, the relationships we're building through the Chamber of Commerce, and then the referrals that we're getting from there. You know, especially when you talk about just time spent and or money spent, like this. Getting boots on the ground is where it's at. You still need to do digital in today's day and age, but at least in this area, in my opinion, you know, you have to be out there making relationships. You have to be shaking hands. You need to be getting to know people and showing them who you are and what you're all about, you know?
It's more than the billboard. It's more than the Facebook post. And you guys, I see you everywhere. I see your Facebook posts. I see that stuff, but I also see the stuff you do at the chamber. I've seen you on the podcast here in the studio. I've seen, you know, the stuff you're doing in the community. You know, I've seen you at the events that, you know, so it's that, oh, I see you here. I've met you in person. Oh, and then I see your ad too, that I think it's not just one thing, it's multiple things.
Yeah. It's branding, right, baby?
Yeah. Branding, baby.
We're learning about branding. So
exactly. So how did you know to go out and do those things? Or was that just kind of natural to what your experience, or?
I mean, I don't know. I think partially is just being exposed. I mean, I have a business background, so I you know, worked alongside of like legal and marketing and stuff like that a lot. So I heard a lot about branding and what it meant. But then when we started digging into, because I mean, the marketing part of the business was the part that neither of us really had any experience with. So that's where a majority of our research went when it was time for us to start building this business. You know, there's tons of great content out there on YouTube if you want to learn how to do a thing or how to start a business. I mean, there's stuff on just how to be an entrepreneur. There's stuff on how to, very specific to the business you want to be in. There's stuff on branding. So we just consumed tons and tons of content until we were kind of comfortable that we had a good base to start with. And then we said, well, I mean, you can't be perfect, right? You got to pull the trigger sometimes. So we just started running, you know?
Yeah. That's so key. My whole last episode was just me in the studio talking about it. Was called Failing Forward Fast. And it's just going out. There's after a while, there's only so much you can learn before you go out and you do it, because you can prepare so much, then you're going to still stumble on your face.
100%. I mean,
I'm the king of the paralysis analysis, right? You got to just pull the trigger at one point, right? They say imperfect action is better than no action.
Yes.
Right? You just got to do something.
Because
you can always build on it, but not going anywhere if you don't do anything at all, right?
Exactly.
Like our first job, we so severely underquoted our first job. We were like, we're probably underquoting this thing, but we're going to learn a ton. I mean, it was a house clean out. They wanted carpet torn out. Like it was a whole bunch of stuff like we had never done before. And I think we underquoted it by like more than half of what we should have quoted. But I'll tell you what, we learned a ton, and we got really good at quoting really fast.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. You learn from I'll never forget, I went to a client and I was so nervous about price. And it's so funny because I've been in sales my whole life, but then you go to sell yourself and your services that you've created. And I go out to this client and I'm so nervous about price. And then I showed him the price for my services. He's like, "That's it? Oh my God, I thought it was going to be way more than that."
Right.
Oh man. Well, actually it is. That was the,
It's just the deposit.
That's just the deposit.
Well, I mean, if you bring confidence with your price and value, though, I mean, that's what selling it's all. I mean, we had a guy last week that we showed up and I quoted him and he offered me $50 more. I was like, we're negotiating. That's how it works. Okay. I'll do that. That works.
Yeah. And it's all about, knowing who your clientele is too. Cause for any business, no matter if you're doing business coaching or junk removal or, anything, there's always a huge range of people that you're working with. So it's really knowing who your customer is, building that value in yourself that they can see it, and kind of targeting that. So,
well, and with that, like everybody has junk.
Oh,
How do you how do you dissect who your customers are and how you reach them?
That's a good question. Yeah. So, I mean, I think part of it is just like as we got going, we started identifying that, and we heard a little bit from the other junk removal companies in the business, just who they focus on. But like the reality of junk removal is like if you need to get rid of stuff, you can kind of do it one of two ways. You can either do it yourself or you can hire someone like us to do it for you. And what we find is that, folks that either if they've got time on their hands and they have the physical ability to do what they need to get done, then those folks might not be our customer. They'll probably rent a dumpster and save themselves, $200 or $300 on the job, and they're comfortable doing it themselves. Like our ideal customer is the folks that don't have the time to do the stuff and or don't have the physical ability to do the stuff. And that's where we really shine. And there's a lot of folks out there that fit into those buckets right now. So, we like when we're working on a Facebook ad or something like that, like we're targeting, folks that are probably over the age of 50, like those are folks like we help out senior citizens all the time, especially downsizing and moving and stuff like that. And, like the baby boomer generation as a whole is a generation of collectors. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be managed when they start to downsize, and they're going to be downsizing probably for the next 10 or 15 years. So like there's an existing market there of stuff that needs to be managed,
And they collected stuff.
Lots of it. Yeah. I mean, their parents were the children of the Depression, so like they came up in that era where you hold on to everything and you don't toss anything out, like they've got, television boxes from a Sony Vaio from the, late 90s, like.
As you start your business and as you're starting in junk removal, how do you find that, I guess, research and, how do you find out where do you take stuff and all that kind of stuff? What kind of equipment you need?
There's a lot of, at least how we did it, there was a lot of information out on YouTube in general, on this kind of stuff, what other guys are doing, and then just phone calls, spend some time online, contacting different landfills and things like that, kind of coming up with a plan. And there's different ways we can do it with equipment, starting from just a base trailer where you're hand unloading everything down to what we started with, some dump trailers. So once you load it up, you just push a button and it's done. So just a lot of time online. When we had started this, I had quit my day job. I was a service technician, the petroleum industry, and I was just burned out, wanted to spend more time with my family. My kids are, growing up, and I actually quit that job because there was no time to do anything for yourself, and started working overnight at Lowe's. So I was working overnights at Lowe's, and during the days I was like figuring out, watching content, kind of coming up with a game plan, figuring out what paperwork you need to file. I had actually built our first website from scratch just off of YouTube videos. We're, I think, on our third iteration of the website now, but we're happy where it's at now and good. But yeah, it was just a lot of time, like Michael said earlier, consuming content and making phone calls and seeing where I needed to go.
Resources, essentially finding your resources. And
I mean, for us, like it's like, okay, you need to know, where your landfills or your dump centers are, because that's where all the junk is going to go, and you need to know where your recycling centers are in the area, because you're going to encounter all kinds of recyclables, and we want to do the best and dispose of things responsibly. Also, like there's metal processing and recycling centers, electronics processing and recycling centers, and then there's donation facilities all over the place. So getting a good layout of all of those things, because I mean we've got a pretty expansive territory too. Like if I'm doing a job down in Ann Arbor that has a bunch of donations, I don't want to be running the donations back to Brighton. I need to have a place in Ann Arbor to handle them. Like our game is get it into the trailer and out of the trailer as fast as we can. So just having those resources mapped out and kind of knowing where we can go when we're in an area streamlines things. But I mean, even that, like, I don't know, we lined up a little list of them when we started, and then we just pulled the trigger, and we just learned a lot as we went too. Like we're much better at recycling and whatnot now than we were 2 years ago. Exponentially better.
Yeah, it's just again learning through that process.
Trial by fire, learning as you're going is one of the best ways. Sometimes it's the hardest, but you learn those lessons and you remember them because it wasn't just a theory or a paper test. We had to work our way through it. So
exactly, and just perfecting it along that way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was cool too I don't know, like I think being members of the community and being local, you meet people and you tell them about where you're at in your journey, and they'll let you learn the lessons sometimes. It's like, listen, we haven't demoed a shed before, but we're happy to do yours as our first one. And, there's folks out there that are like, yeah, sounds good. Hey, we're going to give you a deal so we can learn on your first one. And you go from there. So, I mean, everyone's got to do everything first for the first time sometime, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is even that client that I quoted this really low price, it ended up, I learned a lot out of that outside of what my value was, or even perceived value. I learned a lot in this first few weeks and months of working with that client that helped me change and perfect my system. So it was like getting paid, even though it was far less than what I should have charged.
Yeah.
Getting paid to learn a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in the lesson, right? And that's going to pay you back as you go.
Exactly. We're either winning or learning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you talked about starting this part-time, or did you still work while you started the business? You said you were working Lowe's overnight.
Yeah, so I was working Lowe's overnight while we got this rolling, and then we actually went live with it, and we got a couple phone calls here and there in the first couple weeks, and we're like, okay, like people are actually calling us. What we've been working on is working. People are calling us and wanting to pay us to do stuff. So I did that for a little bit, and I think it was probably about 4 months. I was doing that, kind of running the junk removal jobs during the day, working Lowe's at night, and then my son was born. So my daughter was 2.5 at the time, and then my son was born. And at that point, we were busy enough that I just didn't go back to Lowe's anymore, and started doing junk removal full time, which was still kind of hit and miss a little bit, filling in gaps with other stuff here and there for a little bit. But by the end of the year, we were moving pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, it was April of 21, right? Yeah, April of 21 that he was able to jump out and basically be full-time in the business. I mean, and we were able to pay him what he was making at Lowe's then. So, it was pretty much him and kind of me helping out on the side. And our brother-in-law is, he does a landscaping company and is available to help out sometimes too. So we had, another
Awesome.
resource there for here and there when we needed it. And then it was the following February where we had scaled up enough and we were confident for me to jump out of my job. I was, working full-time still that whole time. And yeah, we haven't looked back. So yeah, this past February was one full year that I've been out and enjoying it.
Let's say, what's that like?
I mean, I don't, for me, the biggest thing coming out of retail is like the holidays, and just in having more time in general.
Yep.
But like the holidays, when you're in retail, like I used to just kind of hate the holidays because it's like I was always working way harder, than the rest of the year.
Right.
And I was watching stressful work and watching my family get to enjoy themselves and being able to, because like we close down between Christmas and New Year's now just to enjoy the holiday with our families, and we close down around Thanksgiving. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, this is a family company and it's just nice. It's just nice.
Like I worked retail for years, and it was like always that all the holidays, like Black Friday, Thanksgiving, it was always like, okay, I got to get up early tomorrow. It's going to be a long ass day,
Right. Yeah, like my family modified like we never did Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving Day. We do it the Saturday after because it's like, like when I was working at Walmart, we were open on Thanksgiving too. So it's you just work through that whole phase.
Yeah. So what's that like now? What is your workload like now? Do you have set hours in your day, or is it kind of just when you get calls? Or
I mean, I feel like we're pretty good at segmenting it now. I don't know. The first year was a little bit bumpy. But so we try to keep our operating time in between like 8 a.m. and say 6 or 7 p.m. Like we're doing jobs up until like 5:30. But and like I do a lot of admin. I'll be kind of up later in the day doing that, following up on calls and stuff like that. But I feel like we're both keeping it to about 50 hours a week each, maybe. I don't know, maybe a little more some weeks.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fair. But we've kind of designed that too, because one of the reasons we got started our own things is because we didn't want to be working all the time. We wanted that extra time. So it's kind of hard when you're especially starting from the ground up and you have so much stuff you're trying to do yourself. But especially now, it's like Mike said, the first year when we were both in it, both on the truck, was a little difficult, but we were both trying to do all the things, basically.
Yeah.
And going into last winter, we knew we were going to want to start hiring, and we said we're going to, define some roles here. So he's going to take care of this. I'm going to take care of this once, we start hiring in the in the winter, I'm going to be out in the field, still working with the guys, running crews as we grow. And he's going to be kind of on the back end doing a lot more of the networking stuff and the admin stuff. And since we really put those roles in place, it's been a lot smoother, at least for me, I know, kind of just that separation, knowing that I don't have to worry about every single aspect of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I can trust him that he's doing, his stuff on that side. And that was just great. But I still see, I've been out of the service tech world now for almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I still see, guys that I used to work with driving around in the same company vehicles, and gives me anxiety. Or I'll be driving past them. I'll be driving past them on the highway, and I'm like, hey, I know who's driving that van, and they're not driving towards their house right now. Like they're going out to work. They've been working all day, and they're not going home to their family. They're working more. So like gives me anxiety back thinking about that. And I'm like, not going back. We're either making this work or we're figuring something else out. Because
do you ever have those dreams where you're like back at work?
Oh
yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. I haven't had one in a long time. It was probably about 6 months ago. I had this like intensive dream where I was back at my job, and I was like, why am I here? I kept asking myself that. And like,
yeah, you have anxiety in your dream about a deadline you're trying to meet or something. It's like, yeah. All the time.
And there's this one guy that we just didn't really like each other, and he was like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I had to come and mess up and fix like your like." It was just like one of those like it's intense. I woke up and I was like, my heart was beating.
What the heck? Yeah. I think that's the cool thing about owning the company though. And like when you start a business, like there's a lot of different ways to do it. And you could do it the same way as you did when you were, doing whatever you're doing before and burn yourself out and have it be an all encompassing thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the important things when you start is we started with the E-Myth, and one of the biggest takeaways we had was like starting with the end in mind. What are we trying to accomplish? Like, what do we want our life to look like between now and what the finish line is?
Yeah.
And what is that finish line? So everything that we've done up until this point, we're going to continue to do is kind of based around that, and, owning our lives and saying we're going to keep it within, like we could work weekends and work late into the night and probably be pulling in a whole bunch more money. But like we want to own our lives. We want to do this methodically. We want to do this sustainably, something that's not going to burn us both out again. Right. So I think it's important to have that structure in place when you're getting going.
It's huge, because if not, you're just working another job that you just happen to own. There's more stresses and responsibilities on top of it, but you still get to a point where you're working 60, 70 hours, or you're not seeing your family. There's more responsibilities at that point.
Yeah. The same thing can happen. And then you're also responsible not only for, what you're doing with your family, but your employees and all that too, right? You need to make it something that's sustainable that you can enjoy.
So talking about that and talking about making that leap and bringing on and hiring somebody, what's that like then, that shift in that mindset as all of a sudden you now do have another person that has a family and, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's extra responsibility for sure, and I think that, I don't know about you, Austin. The hardest part for me probably is the letting go of the things that we've had to own up until this point. Like we've owned, and we still one of us owns 100% of that customer experience from the first phone call, until we wrap up payment. We kind of have that whole experience managed, and we like what's happening with that, and we get good feedback on that. Now, most of my anxiety is coming here probably, in the next 6 months when we're going to start teaching some of our folks to end that experience and making sure that we do that the right way. So that's the thing that I'm most nervous about as we continue to grow. I don't know about you, Austin.
No, that's nail on the head, especially me being out in the field. 'Cause I'm still super connected, working on the trucks more and with these guys and with the customers, on site, and thinking about, letting somebody else take that. Cause I've always been a service tech. I've always been in the field, whether it's going to people's houses or businesses. It was all me all the time. And I know that role, and that's my game still, to hand it off to somebody else. And hope they, follow through on everything that we know and we do is definitely the hard part.
Yeah.
And as we hire people, though, so like knowing that's anxiety for both of us, right? So when we're hiring people, that's one of the things that we're looking for when we're interviewing folks is like, you bet, like if we're sitting here talking, you better be able to hold your end of a conversation and carry water because like we're in people's homes. It's already an awkward thing. You need to be able to have some small talk and have a conversation with folks and put people at ease. And if you can't carry your end of a conversation with us while we're talking and put me at ease, then it's probably not going to work.
I had somebody who has a recruiting business on a couple weeks ago, and she had said something that just made a lot of sense. It was last week, actually. Made a lot of sense where she was like, if you're going through the interview process, that interaction that you're having is how it's going to be all the time. You know, and you could get to know somebody more, but if it's hard to have a conversation with somebody, it's probably going to be hard to have a conversation with them all the time. You
Absolutely.
know? And so it's like, that same thing when you meet somebody, it's like, you can tell, do they care? Because that's the biggest thing. Do they care about people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something you can't teach, right?
You can't teach that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the care for people, the empathy, you know, you need to be able to operate with empathy to do what we do, because a lot of times you're going into situations where somebody's passed away or we're dealing with, you know, belongings that were representative of somebody's life and memories and stuff like that, you know, so that is top of mind for us as we're looking for our next employee.
Well, especially me, that's something we talked about too. After our first rounds of interviews, when we first hired, was I'm going to be in the truck with these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't.
Yeah.
And when I was training people in the trades and things like that, some people were great and you talk to them, and other people is like just a silent van ride, one answer replies to your questions and things like that. And
It's
like,
a
that's just
long
like
day.
pulling teeth. Yeah. So I was like, I need somebody that I can at least carry a conversation with for my sake, but also, you know, talk with people.
Yeah.
And another thing, we ride around with 2 dogs in the truck every day. There are junk dogs. They're my dogs, Hazel and Luna. You'll see them on our Facebook stuff. And they even get shout outs in the reviews. Sometimes people love them, but we ask when we're interviewing people, you know, do you like dogs?
Yeah.
That's going to be it's going to be a big thing.
Because if not,
Yeah.
It's going to be a
we've
long
had
day
people
in the
weed
truck
themselves
for you.
out by saying, yeah, we're not, I don't really like dogs. It's like, well, sorry. So number one, yeah, you're going to be with one every day. And number two, like most of the places we go, they have dogs. So
yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Are there a lot of people that, like, I mean, are there a lot of people that you get that say no?
Not a ton. Most
Yeah.
people love the dogs and everything, like, but we did have I think just one person in the round of interviews who did that was like, and we were like, okay,
Yeah.
we'll note that down.
No, that
Yeah.
like my wife is allergic to most dogs, and so like not that she doesn't like dogs, but it's like she would have to weed herself out in that situation. I was just wondering.
yeah.
And they might not always be in the truck, you know, depending on how we scale and where our roles lie. But it's great to, you know, have them around with us, and they get great, you know, they're great conversation starters if nothing else, because people see the dog's head pop up, you know, when they're greeting us at the door or whatever. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We'll go and do like a farmer's market, or we'll go to like a service show and just walk around, and we'll bring the dogs with us, and we meet more customers and pass out more business cards because people want to come and pet the
They
dog.
come up. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great way to find business, you know. It's a great way to find business for sure. And honestly, like they almost work like they calm down situations sometimes too. You know, like we did a job for a lady her husband wasn't doing well. He was like far along in cancer, and they were trying to get some things handled, you know, while he was still there. So it was a really emotional clean out process. And she saw that we had a dog in the truck, was like, oh, I love dogs. And we're like, oh, well, we'll tie the dog. We mind if we tie it up to the tree here, and you want to hang out with the dog? And she was like, oh, absolutely. And it totally calmed the whole situation down. She sat there and played with the dog, and, you know, it changed the whole tone of the job. So, you know, that's the good stuff about having a dog with you, you know?
That's so cool. What are the dogs' names?
Hazel and Luna.
Hazel and Luna. That's right. How much do they love hanging out all day?
Oh, they love it. It's like we were talking about it earlier today. Every time we come back to the truck, it's like you came home. They're so excited. You could be running into the gas station for 3 minutes and come back, and they're just over the moon to see you. Excited. And it's better for them than, you know, sitting in the kennel all day at home.
Oh my God,
like that.
yeah.
So, plus, when we go to the dump, they get treats when we go through over the scales. The ladies in the booth have treats for them, so they always make sure they wake up from their naps when we get to the landfill. They know they got a treat coming. So.
That is so awesome. But we talk about like being entrepreneurs and being able to create your life, right? And being able to bring your dogs and implement your dogs into like your business process. Like that's part of the interview.
It's part
right?
of our culture.
It's part of your culture.
Yeah. 100%. You know, that's the beauty of being a business owner is like, yeah, what do you want it to be? And if it's reasonable, then incorporate it in. And I'm, you know, like as we grow here, I mean, as we buy like a dump truck and we're putting crews out there, we're not going to have dogs in our cruise trucks and stuff like that. But Austin and I are probably, you know, we're probably going to have the dogs with us as we're rolling around in our trucks. Like, they're happier being with us than they are, you know, being cooped up in a kennel at home.
Absolutely.
So.
But it goes back to even your happiness, because how much like serotonin, how much happiness do you get when you come back and they're so excited to see you when you're getting back in the truck, just 100%. Going to the gas station, you know?
Absolutely. Always happy to see you.
Yeah. Especially after like a tough job, or after it's just been a long day. It's like that gives you, sometimes it's just like that extra motivation to be like, all right, let's go home, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like you think about like normal people going home to your dog, you know, and being like having that, you're just going to the truck. Like it's right out there.
Heck yeah.
That is super awesome. It's just that intentional life.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
It is, absolutely. So what is that was a really cool story you talked about, the lady. What is one of the coolest stories you've encountered?
Ooh.
You probably have so many of them.
I mean, there's a lot of weird situations that we bump into and interesting stories. I don't know. What's one for you?
Just some of the cool places we get to go through. I don't have one in particular, but we do a lot of work in Ann Arbor. And we're just in some really cool places and houses that we wouldn't get to see otherwise. Just really cool architecture. We get to meet a lot of people with different stories and things like that. I think we've done a clean out for like an astronaut at one point. So just I love meeting new people and like you know? People's stories and things like that. And everybody's got their own story. So it's just kind of fun to, you know, get to pick their brain and go through their stuff or their parent stuff or family stuff. And you learn a lot about just different people and, you know, realize that everybody's got, you know, their own stuff going on and everybody's got their own little world, which is, you know, puts it in perspective for you. Cause a lot of times you get stuck in your own world and worrying about everything. And it's a good reminder that, you know, everybody's working on their own storyline.
Yeah, it's kind of cool too. Like when especially if you're doing an estate clean out or a property clean out, like you learn a lot about a person's life, the things that they were into as you're going through their things and whatnot. Maybe it'll put you onto a hobby that you'd be interested in, you know, or, you know, or you're going to learn something like that you never would have learned before because you're meeting these people and getting some insight. I mean, I don't know, like for me, like Ann Arbor is just a cool area to be in general. Like there's so much cool architecture down there.
Yeah.
Like my favorite job that we did so far is probably the one that I got the Volvo on though. You know, like this, so we work with like a lot of other commercial companies, like organizers and stuff like that. So we were doing a job with one of our organizing partners, and you know, this was a situation where the customer, he was a professor at University of Michigan, lived in Ann Arbor, and he just drove from his home basically to work like 2 miles or less every day. And then later in life, he wound up moving out to Hawaii as part of his retirement, and he passed out there. And he left his home, and his car and everything was still here in Ann Arbor. And so we were helping to clean out this home. And you know, this is like a 1986 Volvo that was like just sitting there. And I'm like, hey, what's happening with that car? And they're like, oh, we're trying to sell it. You know, the kids are out of state; they're not interested in it or anything like that. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a really cool, like, I like old station wagons. This is an old 80s station wagon with like the old school red leather interior and stuff. I'm like, well, how much do they want for this thing? And they were like, well, $500. I was like, $500? I was like, how many miles are on it? It's like 88,000 miles on this car. It runs. So we took it for a lap around the block or whatever. And I'm like, this thing is awesome. Yeah, we'll give you $500 for it. And then the best part of that was, so we like took we get scrap money sometimes, like when we're, you know, with metals and stuff like that. So I took my end of the scrap money to the Greek town that evening, and I won the money to buy the car from the scrap money from the job. So it was like basically got a car for free, and now it's my daily, like it's parked outside now. It's my daily driver. If I'm not driving the truck,
that's awesome.
That's the car that I drive around, you know, my $500 hoopty.
So. Did you have to do anything with it?
I put new tires on it and brakes on it and a new timing belt. But other than that, it's golden. I mean, those things are bulletproof.
Yeah.
You know, it's got like 92,000 miles on it now, and it's running strong, man. It's running strong.
That's so cool. That is so cool. That's like, you've just seen some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I again, obviously I do this. I love people's stories. I love hearing like people, and then like you see their stuff in what kind of stories they have, you know, and you can, again, getting a glimpse of their life and what they have going on.
What about like that trebuchet, man? That was a cool job.
Oh, I forgot about that job. Yeah, we had a job in Howell. They were cleaning out an old barn that they had used like a garage workshop because they were going to tear it down and build a new one. So we cleaned everything out, and up top they had a trebuchet, or like a catapult like they use for pumpkin chunking, but they were actually used it in the Howell Melon Fest when they were doing the melon chunking contests. And he gave us, well, we hauled it away because they didn't need it anymore, but we had the blueprints for it and everything, how it went together. So one 4th of July at a buddy's place, we had it set up and we were experimenting with it, trying to throw some pumpkins and rocks and other things that we had.
Yeah, one of our friends still has that. They got it put together the right way, and they were slinging some stuff a long ways. But that the guy said that it had won that Melanchuk contest a couple of times for them. So it's like, that's what a cool find, you know.
How big is this thing?
The base of it was probably like 3 foot by 5 foot,
Okay.
and like with the arm on it stood probably 8-9 foot tall,
Something like that.
Yeah, it was big.
That's insane. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, if you put a rock in it or something, and it probably could have thrown a rock through a wall or something. It had a lot of power behind it.
It's like a weapon, you know, like on the
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's what they were built for in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is that's so cool. Like, so did you guys have, I guess, any interest in that kind of thing as you're finding the junk removal? What led you? What had you lean towards that?
Towards junk removal in general?
Yeah.
I mean, I think for us, it was, you know, when we were looking for a business, it was like, okay, well, home service we keyed in on because we were like, you know, there's going to be a customer base there for a long time. When we looked at junk removal, it wasn't, you know, like a passion for junk removal per se, as so much as it was that there's a relatively low barrier to entry for us. You know, like we already had pickup trucks. All we needed to really buy was a trailer to start making money. So, you know, that low barrier to entry was attractive. Looking around at the competition in the space in the area, we felt like we could differentiate ourselves by especially leaning into becoming, you know, like ingrained members of the community and leaning into the referral groups and whatnot. Like looking around, I didn't see a whole lot of my competition in those spaces either. And then it was a space too where we knew that we'd be able to interact with the community and start bringing positive things back into the community. So, you know, once we saw those three things that existed in a way that we could, you know, at least pay bills a little bit, we said, okay, let's get going. So, I mean, I don't know that we've got all kinds of other ideas for other potential home service businesses too as we continue to grow. I don't know that junk removal is going to be our ending spot, but it would be cool if, you know, 10, 15 years from now, we could say that we had, you know, 2 or 3 little home service companies that were kind of running around here. That'd be awesome.
That's awesome. Yep. That's super awesome how it just all unfolds. And again, you're learning along the way how that all, that whole home service, how it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like if you're willing to work right now, I mean, if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and just, you know, do good blue collar work and, you know, take care of people, it doesn't seem like there's any shortage of work to be found out there. It's just a matter of linking yourself up with the people that are looking for you, you know?
Well, but what you just said too was just, it's like such a blueprint to success. It's like meeting, you know, it's going out and connecting with people. It's going out and building those relationships. It's doing cool things in the community. And it's not hard because no matter what industry you're in, there's not many people out there that's truly out there doing that kind of stuff. And I don't see any of your competitors out there at all.
Yeah, I mean, we see them around when we're driving around, and I've seen them at a couple of local events, but just not, I don't know. Like we're leaning into it hard, you know, like we're putting a lot of our eggs into this basket. I mean, we're doing other things too, you know, like we've got, you know, 5 or 6 marketing strategies that we're just trying to consistently do, but that's probably our biggest one. And I feel like at the end of the day too, like, especially the Chamber of Commerce stuff, like the Chamber of Commerce referral groups. And I mean, CirrusNet for the cost of it, like, you know, and the people that I've met in CirrusNet, like it's a great time spent. honestly, low cost from a marketing perspective. I mean, it's your time and your candor. That's what you're putting in, is your time and your candor and being involved in. And it's not hard. Like people make it hard. I think people make networking hard, and they make, it's not a hard thing though. You're just showing up and meeting people and talking to them. As long as you're your authentic self and you know what you're talking about and you know your business, it's not hard.
It's being a person.
Yeah.
Is showing up and being human. And that's, I think, what I love SiriusNet. And I think I'm on a record, like a Lou Gehrig record, of how many times I've mentioned Steve Siskowski in episodes.
Yeah.
Like, shout out for Steve.
He's high on my list too. So.
It's like every episode he sent me a picture the other day of like his goosebumps, like just every time. But it's like when you do good things for people, though, you constantly get mentioned when in people's lives, because you're making a difference and making an impact. But there's so many incredible people I've met through SiriusNet, and again, you meet a lot of people in the home services industry. I'm sure there's a lot of people you can connect with that are become those referral. I think of like Clark, for example.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've visited your group, and I'm considering joining your SiriusNet group too. Yeah, because there's tons of great home service folks
Clark
out there.
And Trisha Turner.
Yeah, and folks that are of the same mindset too. Not just folks that are trying to do something on the side, like folks that are like fully committed and they really want to deliver a high level of customer experience, and they want to do it as good, or if not much better than some of the national folks that might be doing the same thing. There's a lot of good local folks around here that are trying to work hard and that are putting in the time. And yeah, I mean, SiriusNet, like that has done so much for us, and as soon as we met Steven and we got to chat with him and we got to understand what he was all about, and then went to our first meeting, it was like, oh, this is right where we belong. Like all these folks want to help each other out. Like folks are legitimate. Like we take the time to get to know each other. We're legitimately engaged in each other's businesses. Like I feel like my Wednesday 8 a.m. group, like I feel like anyone in that group could sell my product just as good as I can, because we've taken the time to get to know each other and we're seeing each other on a regular basis. Like they could probably give my sales rep the same way that I could at this point.
Well, and it's so key though, because not only do they know your stuff, but I've been a part of networking groups before, or just any networking group. You show up and there's random people. Being a part of a BNI or whatever, you show up and it's like, can you really refer everybody that's in the group? And for me, my group like is solid. It is like Robert Pierce and Trisha Turner and so many incredible people. Jonathan, do you know who Jonathan Hayward is? I need to have that guy on the show. He's like
I don't think I've met him yet. No.
Yeah, he's like a rolling commercial. He does the best 60-minute like member minutes ever. It's like the insurance company could hire him as their spokesperson. Anyways, it's a rant. But it's like when you have so many just incredible people that you truly get to authentically meet, because I think that's the other cool thing about SiriusNet and what Steve does is it's not just a networking group. It's like how to do it the right way, personally develop, like actually meet people, connect with people. It's more than just that meeting that you show up with. It's like what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
And a really cool thing about that and having that solid group of people is it just gives you the opportunity to build that much more value for your customers, because we deal with a lot of people in transition that need more than just junk removal. So and they're asking us for, do you know anybody that does moving or, this or that? And it's like, well, yeah, we do. And these are really cool people. It's not just like, well, here's a few people we've seen around or whatever. It's like, people that we know and we trust, and we know that they deliver the same type of end product that we do.
Like if you other companies out there, if you want to get yourself a good 5-star review, not only knock the ball out of the park, but give them their next solution provider while you're there.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's like Clark. I know you're connected with Clark, and I mentioned Clark a couple times because I've been trying to get him on the show, and it never works out. So,
that guy's running around doing like 5 different.
I know,
things.
Man. I know. It's
he's a busy man.
He's a busy guy. So I'll have to like throw a special date out for him. But it seems like if you're out and if you see, for example, like stains on houses and stuff like that, you have a great connection to passing Clark along.
Yeah, if I see stains on houses or driveways, I know he's doing power washing, so I can pass him as a referral, and I can also pass Trisha with CGC Water a referral, because if their water's looking like that, it's probably because their filtration system isn't filtering out all the rust and the iron. And she's taught us that if if you don't have a filter in place, then your body's the filter. So,
and how much more visual does that need to be?
Right. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't had so much exposure to her. Right. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that one of your, like, especially for us, we're in and out of homes all the time. It's like, we're always looking for that other, like, how can we bring more value to this customer? Like, that's part of the process. Right. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be us bringing the value if we're just giving them a solution provider for something that, and it might even be a problem they don't even know they have. If it's a first-time home buyer, maybe they think that they're supposed to have rust all over their house. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Or they don't know who to go to because, I mean, you go to Facebook and you're like, hey, who can remove junk from my house? And how many people have somebody or referral, or there's like so many, it's like drinking from the water hose.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even like doing that. If I need something, I don't want to go to, my wife does it all the time. And I'm like, how do you even then decipher? You just got 30 opinions,
Right,
and they're all different.
Well, and half the time it's like they're referring you to just a guy with a truck. It's like, okay, well, like, it's important that people are insured if you're bringing them on your property. If somebody gets hurt or something gets messed up on your like, ask if your service provider carries an insurance policy, because that's an important thing when you're letting people into your house on the regular. And that's partly, like, that's why, like, the cheapest option isn't always the best option for you when you're thinking about it bigger picture too.
Absolutely. But it's all that stuff. So it's for you guys. It's somebody that cleans houses or does landscaping or does power washing or Christmas tree or Christmas lighting. All that stuff. It's like it all ties together as you're out and about with people.
Yep, absolutely.
But most importantly, it's I think what I was trying to say earlier is that they are great businesses. They are great people. They're that they're aligned with you. You know they're going to give you an experience that's similar to what you're going to give, to where the people that are going to be just as happy like if you were doing the job. I
mean, that's important. I mean, if you're passing someone out as a referral, like, ultimately they're a reflection of you too, right? So it's important. I mean, for us, like, we don't refer people that we don't know already.
Yes,
we want to see what your work looks like. We want to meet you in person. We want to get to know, like, what you're about a little bit, right? We want to make sure you're kind of about some of the same things that we are. And yeah, once we have that relationship, then I'm happy to pass a referral for you if I bump into something. But, like, you can't just look somebody up on Google and think that they're going to be okay, right?
Exactly. That's the same thing as just even going to a networking meeting and not then building a relationship afterwards. It's really hard. Like, you might have seen them or met them, but you don't know them per se.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that same thing.
Yeah. Trust builder's got to happen. It's probably, that's the most important part of the whole process, is sitting down face to face and getting to know the other folks that are on your team and what makes them tick. Right.
Yeah. Cause again, how do you know even what level of service they give until you get to know who the person is and what makes them tick? Cause you can refer somebody out cause they seem nice, but then you don't know if the job's getting done or
right. Yeah. Yeah. Or you get feedback that, I wasn't too happy with them. It's like, oh man.
Yeah. But outside of that, it's even like going into meetings thinking like, I need to get business. When you're going out and you're meeting people with that open mind of like, how can I connect my clients to these people? Or how can I connect people? Who do I know that could use this person? It's being outward. And I think that's where all the best relationships are from,
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's better to share than to look for things. Like, I think about like folks that are like that, and they're the folks that brought us into into SiriusNet and the chamber to begin with, like, Erica McNamara and Jim Campbell, like those both of those are two folks that we met early on, when we were getting into the chamber, and they both kind of led us into SiriusNet. But like Jim sells insurance, Erica's an attorney.
Yep.
Neither of those two people tried to sell us on what they do ever, the whole time that we knew them. Like, we met them at some grand openings. We got to know and chat them up a little bit. They asked us questions about our business, and they started introducing us to people. And that's how they brought us value. They introduced us to people. Erica's been a regular customer of like, we visit her house like 3 times a year anymore, I think. But, they added value to us, and we said, okay, well, now Jim's our insurance agent and Erica's our business attorney, and it was because they never sold us once. They just brought value to us as a business and brought us into the fold with the people that they trusted, that, like, what better present can you give to somebody else than giving them trust and bringing them into your network?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really got us rolling kind of into, well, Michael more so does the networking groups and the things like that. Well, we kind of early on joined the chamber kind of on a whim, had never been part of a chamber with anything before, but wasn't very expensive. Seemed like a lot of exposure to different stuff. And we'll try it. And then we went to a few openings and met a few people, like Michael said, Erica and Jim there, just providing value and kind of, oh, you should do this or you should go to that. And that just kind of one thing led into another and went down that pathway a lot. And it just kind of like opened up so much opportunity in these different groups and meeting all these other fantastic businesses in the area we wouldn't have met otherwise if we were just running our own ads on Facebook and Google and trying to, go that route and hadn't dug down in or had some guidance from some of those people early on the chamber. We might not be sitting here with you. We might not have made it into SiriusNet and all that. So having that guidance, it just kind of organically grew through those few relationships we made early on. So that's been a really cool piece too.
What is it? I mentioned you guys are everywhere. I've seen you everywhere. I've seen you on the different podcasts. I've seen you at the events. And so like if you're thinking about if you didn't show up to those events, you probably wouldn't be here.
It's the referral rabbit hole. It's like, how deep does the rabbit hole go? I mean, we've had folks we have folks in our network now that it's like we met because we met somebody like, 4 contacts, or it's like one person hooked me up with another person, hooked me up with another person. And it's like, that's how I met that person, was through like 3 or 4 different connections made, that started in SiriusNet. It's like, how cool is that you
so cool.
can work your way through and
I love tracing the origins.
Yeah. 100%. It's a cool thing to do. We've got a realtor that we work with that just like heard about us from another realtor who heard about us from another realtor that we met in SiriusNet. It's like, it's great.
It is. It's so cool too, because it's like that a kind of abundance mentality versus scarcity. You just like a realtor and introduced you to another realtor. That's pretty cool. And so
yeah, I mean, I feel like you have, if you go into business, or at least into like the service business, you have to go into it with an abundance mindset.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you go into it thinking that you're gonna be competing with the other folks that are out there all the time, or you're not gonna get anywhere. You're just gonna be spinning your wheels. You have to know, number one, that there's work out there, and 2, know that spending time worrying about your competition is just going to waste your time. Like, you need to just worry about what you're doing and doing
Absolutely.
it right, and that's going to breed success in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's definitely good to know like what your industry is doing and where it's going, but to focus on individual companies as like us versus them gets you nowhere. We actually have a meeting that we're trying to set up with one of the national companies in the area that reached out to us about just, kind of sharing resources and things like that. So,
yeah. I mean, they're having the same, they're in a similar position to us, where it's like they got tons of work and, they're struggling to get staffed up. So it's like, hey, maybe we can work together on some things, or we get a bigger job. Maybe we can help each other out. Right. I mean, we're not hurting each other, that's for sure.
It's all relationships is the name of the game. And again, I brought up that abundance mentality because it all ties into this. I'm so glad that we started talking about it, because I think it's so huge in business, like you hit the nail on the head of like that us versus them mentality. I think a lot of life, we saw a lot of that through COVID. The 2020, the us versus them, that really came out in a lot of different facets, and people were like, friendships and families got ruined in this, us versus them mentality. So when you think about whether it's competition or anything, there's a competitor, but you might not be a good fit for a certain client, and they might be a good fit. But it's not necessarily just because they're a competitor doesn't mean that they're bad per se. And what can you learn from them?
Right, 100%. Yeah, like we will totally, if we're going to be working alongside them, there's certainly going to be processes that we're paying attention to, and we'll probably learn as we go. We didn't take the franchise route kind of deliberately because we wanted to build and from the ground up and learn as we go. But there's certainly going to be things that we learn. I mean, we learn from everybody that we interact with. That's the whole name of the game,
That's
right?
Exactly
is getting exposure and learning like, okay, what can I, learn from you and take from you to incorporate into my life, into my business, to make it more efficient and make it more profitable and or increase happiness. That's what every one of them is about.
And it's hard with the technology and everything out there now, it's really hard not to see the abundance in everything, because just drive down the road with your GPS on and you can see the neighborhoods with houses. When you fly in or out, when you're taking off for landing, look around, like the houses in the neighborhoods, there's just so many people, so many houses, so many different people that need all these services. Yeah, there's plenty of work and people around here to for everybody to have a piece of the pie.
A lot of them don't even know that they need the service sometimes. Sometimes it's like you're having to educate them like, you do need us.
Or they just didn't even know that there was an outlet for something.
Yeah.
Like we've had hot tubs is a big one. We get rid of so many hot tubs that people have just inherited with a house or stopped working, and it's just sat there because can't take it out to the curb. They don't know what to do with it. And then they'll see a piece of one of our clips on Facebook or something come past, and they're like, oh, there is something we could do about this, right?
Yeah.
And we're in hot tub season right now. That's for sure.
That's what I love about the marketing piece of something like that, where you can just show a picture and then all of a sudden somebody gets an idea because they didn't think about it before. It's like Henry Ford said, if I would have did what my customers wanted me to do, I would have made a faster horse. They didn't know that they didn't know what an automobile was. They didn't know that was a possibility.
Right.
Like people don't know what's possible until you show them or educate them on that, to your point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, folks. I mean, especially around here, you have to think about we were talking earlier about, the folks that can and the folks that need us more. Time is something in Michigan that you have to think about, maybe down south, like you've got summer all year or whatever, but up here, summer's limited. And this year, it seems like summer was really limited. It took forever for it to get here. But I mean, what do you get? 20, maybe 24 good Saturdays in a year around here. So the question you have to ask yourself, at least when it comes to cleaning up and junk, is do you want to spend a whole day figuring out how to manage that and, either renting a dumpster or renting a truck and a trailer to handle it yourself? And everything that goes into that. It can be either a day or it can be a multiple weekend type of a thing, depending on the project you're trying to tackle, where you could have us come in and we could have it done a lot of times in a couple of hours for you, did you even know that that's a possibility? And it's going to cost you a couple $100 more maybe than what you were going to do. But again, how do you value your time?
Let's say, what's your time worth there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me, if I'm not an expert in it, I'm willing to pay somebody to do it that is an expert, because it's even if I think I can do it, I probably don't know how to do it as well as I think I do, and I'm going to get frustrated and mess it up, and I'm going to wind up calling somebody in.
It's going to take more time. You're going to spend a bunch of money on it anyways, trying to figure it out yourself, and it's not going to be done as quickly or as good as you had somebody else come out.
Yeah. And 3 trips to the hardware store later.
Or you pull your back from doing whatever, trying
100%.
to lift something. You brought up a good point that's kind of a totally different direction, but just like you mentioned the weather in Michigan. What do you do during the winter? Are you still removing junk out in the?
Yeah, we work through it. So I mean, we move a little bit slower than we can in the summertime, and the business is a little lighter than it is too.
Yeah, do people even know that they can get rid of their stuff in the winter sometimes?
Yeah, a lot of what we do a lot more just kind of one-off jobs and stuff through the summer. People clean out their basement, garages, spring cleaning. But we do a lot of work with realtors and professional organizers, estate sale companies.
Yeah.
And that's really our bread and butter throughout the winter. I mean, we still get the one-off calls for that, but all those relationships, and a lot of them we've made just by going out and meeting people around here.
Yeah.
Those are a big part of our winter work. And that carries through all year round, but we just add in a lot more of the one-off normal residential stuff throughout the summer as well.
It's the multifacets we've talked about. We've talked about so many different key areas that you guys have done to set up the business. Having that, doing the networking, getting the referrals, like all the stuff ties in. It's the multifaceted stuff, and then you set up and you have something going on in winter where you set up these relationships that are key in your business. And then he's one-off. That's what it takes to build.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a seasonal type of a business, if you're not putting efforts into cultivating relationships that are going to keep you alive in the wintertime, it's going to be tough, because the just residential part of the business, especially if it's an outside type of thing, it's not going to be there through the wintertime. So you need to do something to make sure you can survive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just as you were talking about that, it was like all of a sudden, whoa, what do you do during the winter to survive? That's genius.
Yeah, one of the nice things about it though, unlike landscaping or some of the other stuff that's out there that's very seasonal, we don't have to just completely stop and start doing something else. We can keep doing what we're doing and adjust it, and we also take that time to rest, because it's all long summers. Tons of work during the busy season, so we kind of recharge and we get our game plan together, for what the next year is going to look like, and getting all those pieces in place. Like this past winter, we were working on getting our handbooks because we knew we were going to hire at the beginning of the year early on. So we wanted to get our handbooks in place and our job descriptions in place and like employment contracts. So we spent a lot of time and money up front in that slow time to make sure we were ready when it got busy.
Working on the business.
Yeah. And we retooled our whole, like, we got a new marketing company and they put together a new website, and we put together a whole new digital strategy during the winter time too, so I think that's honestly, it's what's nice about this business too, is like a lot of businesses, if you're just going year round, like sometimes it's hard to pause and do a reset or take time to reflect, but we get that with the cyclical nature of our business. So we can do a hard reset and we can make a good plan for next year without having to pause any of our business. Cause it's, the holidays do that for us.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a big sports guy. So it's like the off season, right?
Yeah.
You get
100%.
the off season to like grow,
Absolutely.
work on your body, like work on your business. And
Yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool too, because then it's, you make the plan and you execute, and when you get to see it pan out, it's like that's the most satisfying thing.
Yeah.
It's the late great Colonel John Hannibal Smith said, "I love it when a plan comes together."
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
It's my favorite quotes ever. So,
Yeah, we're starting to get used to plans come together. Sometimes we're always looking for that hiccup, but we've spent a lot of time with the plan so far and what we're doing that it's really been, kind of working out the way we planned it. So that's really cool to watch that all come together. And it makes, the next steps of planning are still stressful. It's all still new stuff, but it's like, oh, we've been through all these other roadblocks and things like that before, and our plans worked. So it kind of builds the confidence in like, hey, we can kind of see the destination and make that map, and we're getting better at that too. So
that builds and reinforces that confidence that you've been there.
right, it's something new, but this whole thing's been new so far, and we've worked our way through it. So if we've got this far in it, then the next step is, just another piece of that.
You get more comfortable with the calculated risk.
Yeah. So we talked about hiring. What is that vision? And I guess you talked about possibly growing the company and different home services. But what is that next step for you guys?
Well, right now, we want to get to the end of this year and kind of have 2 crews running. I think that's kind of our goal is, right now, we went from just Austin and I being the crew to now, we're training people. So we want to buy an actual dump truck, because we're running trucks and trailers right now. So we're looking at buying a dump truck here, and we want to get another crew set up. And if by the end of this year we got, Austin and a guy and another crew running, then I think we'll be in a really good spot. As we go forward, our goal is to scale, this thing up to, 7 figures. So we want to get to where we maybe have 4 crews running. And then reevaluate what territory we're having. We've talked a lot about, do we want to expand territory? Do we just want to own Southeast Michigan? So I don't know if we've made a decision on all of that yet, but our first goal would be to get to, where we got 3 or 4 crews running consistently, and then we'll see if it's expansion time, or if it's maybe start another business.
Yeah, and that's the big exciting question too. If we own this area, do we want to go out into those areas that are farther away, because that might draw us, farther out for starting things up and not time, spending more time kind of away from our area? Or do we want to, leverage all these relationships that we've already built here and just add things to our, to our services, or add extra companies that, that we can leverage, all that work we've already
services.
put in for this. We'd start so much higher up with these other businesses just with what we've put in place with this. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But yeah, we really want to own this area, have 3 or 4, crews, trucks running here, and then who knows?
What kind of person should apply? What kind of person would be a perfect fit for you guys?
Well, we've already talked about being able to carry conversation, be personable. You have to have people be comfortable with you coming into their house, right? So somebody like that, clean cut, carry conversation, and then you obviously get into the physical stuff. We're up and down stairs, in and out of houses, doing
Carrying
a lot of physical stuff, heavy moving. So that's a piece too. But you really can't train the empathy and the interactions with customers. That's the hardest part. If someone's a little out of shape at the beginning, even coming out of the winter, the first month or so into the busy season, we're both like, okay, we got to get the stamina back up, get the conditioning back up. So,
that's stuff you don't think about.
That's something that comes, but some people, somebody that wants to learn, and we're very transparent with everything we do. So, we're looking for somebody that can come in and, have conversations, move stuff, be active, but also,
just be reliable.
Yeah.
Be reliable, but also have like that entrepreneurial mindset, because we're always working through that kind of stuff, talking about it, always, looking for someone with good ideas. And like every industry needs workers that just, here's your rules. This is what you do that. But we're also looking for people that, are, thinkers and have that entrepreneurial mindset, problem solvers. Yeah. Because we're in a lot of different situations where, we do a lot of hot tubs, but every hot tub's a little bit different. How are we going to cut this one up? Is it in the side? How is it going to piece into the trailer? How are we going to get to, do we got to go to the landfill first, or can we bounce this around or pick up another trailer? So thinking on your feet is a big thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of, every single job we go into is different. So the ability to solve a problem and see your way through it is definitely a competency that we're looking for with folks. And we're looking for folks that want to grow with us, if we're going to right now we're hiring folks in, as a team member, but we need to quickly get folks from team member to driver, and quickly from driver then to team lead.
Yeah.
And as we scale up and we add in more teams, there's going to be there's going to be a space for a general business manager on our team. There's going to be a space for an admin probably at some point in time on our team. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of opportunities to grow and bring value to the business. So we're looking for folks that are interested in doing that with us as well, and that don't mind making their money while they sweat at the same time, because there's plenty of sweat.
And to separate us from, we both left the, 9 to 5 grind to start our own thing for a reason. I wasn't happy with a lot of my employers that I had over the years or working there. So we're trying to create an environment, too, within our industry and within the company, that people want to come work and want to stay and grow with us, give them a reason to treat them like they're people. Right.
Yeah. It's building that culture. It sounds like you both are a part of something that's like more that corporate America, where you're more like a number, as opposed to that small business piece.
Yeah.
Right. So many places, and most of the places I work for, treat their employees as a commodity instead of an asset. They take you in, they hire you for as little as they can, get as much work out of you as you can, and you'll either just run it out or you'll burn up and they'll hire somebody else. So we're trying to do different than that. We want to have that work-life balance, so we think that's important for our people to have that too.
And to say, all the things that we came from too. It's not like it was all bad either.
Absolutely,
we learned a ton from our careers, and that's the reason that
Absolutely.
we're able to do what we're doing now. Like Austin's operational knowledge and mechanical knowledge and the drive that he has, like that didn't come from nothing. And my business background and the intuition that I have about when's the right time to do a thing or customer, like that didn't come from nothing either. So we have to take all of that and appreciate that. But also, while I had plenty of folks that I didn't, or organizations I didn't like, I was on some pretty good teams along the way too. And I know what a good team looks like. And when a high functioning team is all humming and moving in the same direction, and it feels like a family, like when you've been part of that, it's something you look for again, and it's hard to find. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to put together, is just a group of people that are all moving in that same direction, that are thinking the same way. We know it's going to take us a little while to get all the pieces in place, but that journey is part of the fun,
It is absolutely part of the fun. And the reason why I asked that question was exactly what you guys said. It's like, it's that passion, right? It's being a part of a small business. It's being a part of a place where you're appreciated, you're respected, you're building a team. I know you guys, I don't know you extremely well outside of our couple of conversations and right now, but it's like, I can feel that culture is important. And like, for someone listening to this, it's like, if you're inspired, like, to be a part of something that's growing, you talk about like, you might be coming in as just a team member here, but like, what is that future of that company when you're talking about like, we want to have these several crews. We want to have several companies that are in this home service umbrella. What does that look like for somebody coming in?
Yeah,
it's exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, it's important, I think, to have a vision and have folks know what they're working towards. I mean, there's no better way to keep people motivated than have them be a part of and understand the mission that you're on, right? And I think that's, I mean, you could bring someone in and just say, well, you're working for me, and that's it. Or you can include them in what the long-term goal is and say, hey, here's some benchmarks for you. Here's some goals to accomplish, and here's how you can help the business, And the cool thing about what we do, too, is like, there's other incentives involved with working in this industry. Like you get tips when you're out there, like there's stuff that people are throwing away that maybe you need in your house. Like if one of our folks is working with us and they need something and it's not something we're going to donate, then you can take it home. There's a lot of other things that are kind of cool.
8-foot bears, right?
Yeah. Bears, for example. Yeah. Like there's all kinds of cool opportunities that come along. And if you're into meeting people, if you're into history, if you're into just being around a couple of guys that are talking about entrepreneurial stuff all the time, like that's literally all that we do all day, right? We're always bouncing stuff off of each other. How cool would this be? And how cool would that be? So, I feel like if you want to be involved in an environment like that, that's what we're all about, and it's energizing having more people that think that way around you too.
It's just short sharpening stone. I don't know. I lost my yeah, but it's like it's when the people you're around help you elevate, right?
Yeah, steel sharpens steel. Is that
steel sharpens steel?
Yeah,
I'm like, what? I lost my analogy. I'm looking to Grant like.
I was ready. I was like,
throw me a bone
iron.
here.
I need to phone a friend. Man, guys, thank you so much for coming down.
Oh, thanks for having. Like after watching this podcast, and I mean, I know I told you this before, but when we were coming up and we, some of those early speed bumps and growing pains and stuff, like listening to your podcast and some of the folks that you had on there, and the authenticity that comes across in these meetings, like. For a business owner who is starting out and maybe doesn't have that confidence out of the gate, like this is the kind of stuff that keeps people going that are trying to get going. So we appreciate you and for what you're doing for all of this, because it did a lot for us as we were coming up, and we still listen to your podcast to this day. So it's always good content to consume.
Think the first time I heard about you or the podcast, I think it was with Robert Pierce.
Yeah.
And I think that was before even the SiriusNet stuff. I kind of randomly came across it, and that episode really was like a huge light bulb. I was like, this is good content here. This is good information. It's not just,
Rob,
some guys rambling.
To you guys too, that Target retail.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
We met up with him, not too long ago too. He's a great guy.
He's just a phenomenal human. He's like one of those guys that he just incredible heart and just wants to help people.
Yeah. Doesn't stop either.
He does not stop at all. Yeah. You're just an incredible guy. But that's so awesome that Robert was that first kind of episode.
Yeah, it was just like everything that you guys got into just built a little bit more. And I was like, yeah. Like,
that's so awesome.
Content.
Thank you guys so much. It's so cool sitting and listening to hearing what people enjoy. Because it's like, I love it when a plan comes together, right? That was always it's like, I've been told, I'm listening to people that I've seen. I'm listening to people that I've met in public. That it's not like listening to like David Goggins and stuff like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I've listened to David Goggins and Gary Vee and all the people. But when you can listen to people that are in your local community, entrepreneurs that are making it happen, it's like it is touchable and achievable.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. There's another way to do it out there.
There is.
Yeah. There's another way.
Well, thank you guys again so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time, man.